All right, I got 6:30, so we'll go ahead and start the program here. This is not a public hearing, but it's a
Work
special
session.
a work session with you, far away.
Back in October, Sharon Carney and myself were asked to come down by Mr. Walker and Mr. Miskovic to talk about the opportunities that exist for grants to work with the former Norfolk Southern Office Building. And what I've handed out to you, Sharon's going to go over with you the where we are now, what we've done, and then what the options are, and then what we believe would be the most prudent thing for the town to do at this point going forward. So Sharon, it's all yours.
Well, thank you for letting me come and talk to you for a few minutes, and I understand there's been a lot of discussion, and so I want this to be open so you can ask me any question that you can think of, because I'm here to look out for your best interest on this project. Just so that you'll know, I have 22 years experience in doing this. I retired from Prince Edward County, and I used to work for the city of Danville doing just this type of work for them. In the city of Danville, I was the project manager for a project there called the Crossing at the Dan, which was $15 million worth of VDOT money, and it's still growing today.
You did the entire crossing of the Dan display with VDOT money?
Almost all of it. We pulled in a lot of money. When we run short, we recruited private investment money, like in Pepsi Cola.
Did that involve the rehab of the warehouse center?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and where they now have the movie theater, or not, but it's a stage now, I think. Is that
Yes.
what- Yeah,
It started out with the train station,
right.
and then we moved on to the old Pepsi building and turned it to a ticket area, a meeting space. We went into the farmer's market, the old freight depot. It's the largest indoor farmer's market in the state of Virginia, 24,000 square feet. And it is used almost every weekend, and every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. you'll see 800 to 1,000 people standing there waiting to buy produce. This old Southern office building that they had there is now an auxiliary branch of the Science Museum of Virginia. The Carrington Pavilion was just a crazy idea for a hole in the ground. The crossing bridge went over and joined the crossing project with Dan Daniel Park Athletic. Did a trail system there, and just keeps growing. The first thing we did was to develop a master plan, and that's pretty much the way we started here. With a team from Hurt and Profit, along with our environmental engineer. You mentioned his name, Kevin O'Brien from Jefferson Lewis came along, and we went through the old Norfolk Southern building to find out what we were dealing with.
The Danville location, that's where they do the brew fest then, right? Is that?
They have a shrimp fest there
That's right, okay.
that, for about 3,000
Well,
people.
it's right across from the station.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
they did a tremendous job. You've never been down there, that is just.
Well, thank you very much.
Pretty-
We finished that area, and we're ready to move down towards the bridge where you cross Main Street.
Right, I know.
And I had, due to the family issues, I wanted to move back closer to the Northern Virginia area. And so I got as far as Farmville. And, but I've had great success in Farmville, and in recruiting business and industries, building industrial parks and all.
Sure.
Most of that has been with grant money as well.
Mhm.
It's all about the money.
But you did the South Boston piece too?
No, sir, I did not.
Just the Danville piece, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Same concept,
Mhm.
but, so after we took a tour of the Norfolk Southern building and started putting together where could we pull money for your project and how would we put it together, And the biggest catalyst to this was the VDOT enhancement grant, they now call it TAP. Because in November was the last round in 17, the next round would not be until 2019. So if you had any plans to do anything in the next 2 years, you had to do it by November. And so you guys agreed to move forward, and we put together a master plan. You may ask why the number of 600,000. We worked with VDOT for a recommendation. It's a 2-year grant. And so, you know, how can we leverage this money and get the best? And 600,000, if you were to get it all, would put you in a position to leverage against a lot of grant money that's out there and do most of your project with very minimal investment on your part. I'm not going to say free, but minimal investment on your part, considering what it would take to do the streetscape, the road crossing, the actuaries, the sidewalks down to the athletic fields. You know, it's a master plan kind of concept, so that's the way we started putting it together.
And I think the concept too, Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, but your concept too was that there would be money in this that we could pay to Norfolk and Southern to purchase the property that the park sit on.
Or that would come from, I believe, a different grant, but we could leverage money and potentially include that in.
There is grant money out there that could pay for the park, okay? There are lots of grant opportunities. It just depends on how you put it together and how you leverage one against the other, on how much there would be out of your pocket. A move like that could enable you, because it's an investment on your part, could move into a different area. But the goal for me was to get you into this and through this with as little investment as possible.
Sure.
And grants come and go all the time, and their regulations change, like VDOT recently did. But the review of the Norfolk Southern building was quite enlightening. Now I know why Norfolk Southern gave it away. It is a strong building, cast in place concrete. It's built like a bomb shelter, and it is not going anywhere. Unfortunately, it's riddled with asbestos in the ceilings, asbestos in the floors, you know, lead-based paint everywhere, and the paint has not been tested to determine how intense the lead is in that paint. The more intense the lead is in the paint, the more expensive it is to get rid of it. There is no landfill in the state of Virginia that will accept over the minimum requirement. You have to ship it to North Carolina.
Hazardous lead.
Hazardous lead. And then you also have mold that's growing in the basement. So this doesn't include mercury switches, all the other things that they'll find as they go through in a more finite evaluation. But
If we were to tear the building down, we'd still have to
You
properly
would
dispose of all that stuff.
Still be faced with
you're faced with a dilemma. You can remediate it all, and you'll be left with a shell building. People go out and build shell buildings all the time, but they won't be as strong as your shell building because yours is poured in place, cast in place concrete. But to remediate the situation after an evaluation is done, excuse me, could be expensive, but there is grant money out there to help pay for it. It's called brownfield grant. And once you get that, then you can leverage other money against it to pay the other half to get rid of it. The estimated cost for to remediate could be upwards of $600,000. And this was by an environmental specialist.
Sure.
But if you tore it, I asked Kevin O'Brien, so if you tore it down, you still have to pay the 600,000.
Yeah.
And I said, if you tore it down, how much would it cost? And he said, about $1.2 million or more. And I said, okay, how much would it cost to renovate it? And he said, about $1.5 million. I said, okay. So it's pretty much your dilemma.
Mhm. If we do like they've been doing and do absolutely nothing with it, let it collapse on itself eventually,
You still have the problem.
still is a problem.
It ain't gonna collapse.
It's not in our lifetime.
Okay.
But having done a building in Brunswick that did collapse, had been identified, not as hot as this is, but pretty good. It collapsed when we got ready to take the bids that day, when we were out there on site. From the time we'd been there the week before till that day, the entire roof structure had fell in. And it made it more expensive because you couldn't pick it apart. You had to treat everything as if it were the maximum, had to be kept wet during the entire remediation process, all of that.
I don't
So-
think there's any way we can give it back to Norfolk Southern.
I don't think they were ignorant when they gave it to you.
No, ma'am.
Well, we had to beg for that building to get it started off, to be honest with you. But that building was in A1 shape when we got it.
But it's the standards had changed, the regulations. You could not put a human being in that building as it is now.
Oh, definitely not.
And I don't think the contaminants were any different when they gave it to you. It's just that the regulations weren't
That's
More
right.
than that. And, but the VDOT grant, everything hinges on getting the VDOT grant and how much you get. And so in my little synopsis here, you have 2 courses of action. You can go forward and put forth some money and get in phase 1 and phase 2, environmental done. The chances of getting by with just a phase 1, that's minimal, is likely slim and none. You're gonna have to go to a phase 2, which means you have to turn into DEQ a remediation plan. And, I thought about this for a long time, and Mr. Walker and I had thought about it when I was working on this morning. And I looked at action 2, which is to do nothing until November of 2018 to see if you get a VDOT grant. And if so, how much? Once that's determined, then we can sit down and lay out an exact plan on how to bring it through the system. Okay? It is more conservative than what you'd originally think, but you're not in a hurry to jump into this. This is gonna be a multi-year, large ticket project. And I'm not afraid of a multi-year, large project. It's just that I want you, the town of Crewe, to have as little a risk at this as there is possible and have a really good end user when we're done with it. And that hasn't been solidified either, exactly who the end user would be. I mean, being an economic developer for Prince Edward County for 10 years, I like to dream up all sorts of stuff, turning it into housing, office space, training space, or multi-use it for a multitude of it. You know, visitor center for the park area, office space, training space upstairs. We even reached out to a lady who is interested in doing some rehabilitation for returning vets, and she's looking for a space. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
How big a space does she need?
We didn't go into that, because without, when we get the money and we start, then that's gonna be who we go to on how you, because it's gonna come out like a shell.
Right, but we might have a space that we could hook her up with if she's,
She has just
Sounds
started
fine.
the preliminary in doing this, so she's not ready to move yet,
okay.
but we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Because I have her contact information, so. And in addition, you have no idea what fast seed is gonna, bring forth towards you. When I run the numbers on the numbers of people that are gonna come here just as students, and then I look at the number of people that are here coming as teachers, they all are coming with a spouse, a trailing spouse, most of them, and they're all gonna need to go to schools and live here and work here and da-da-da-da-da-da. And you don't have enough houses on the books that are sitting empty between you and Blackstone to accommodate all those people. And I don't know about you, but in Prince Edward County, we only put up building permits for maybe 20, 25 houses in a given year. So housing, all the amenities that go, if you brought in 2,000 people here to live on a regular basis, they need.
They're not gonna come here. They're gonna burn up the road between, here and Chesterfield, that problem.
I wouldn't necessarily say you will get some,
You'll get a few,
that's right. But a few is a relative term. Couple hundred.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Hey, Farmville is not betting that,
Well, that's.
and you're in the middle.
Well, I'm staying.
Just saying. But anyway, it will be interesting in the next couple of months to see what shakes out on that. But there are, I guess I need to, it's all pretty daunting when you talk about applying for a grant for 600,000. That was recommended to us by VDOT when we talked about the scope of work that we wanted to do. Since you cannot go back until 19, you can ask for more money in 19. They asked that the money you asked for in 2017 be money you can spend more immediate. Which in your case for the building would be evaluation and remediation and plans. The actual construction would probably be coming in year 19 grant. But,
And it wouldn't concern me to leave the roof like it is, even though it leaks. It didn't just start leaking,
No.
excuse me,
and I don't believe it can hurt the interior of that building based on what I saw.
excuse me,
when I walked in that building. So if you waited until this grant from VDOT becomes available, assuming you get it, then we pursue other grants to take care of the cost of the roof repair or new roof, and you don't have any expense.
Well, you're the engineer, so I take your word for it.
Well, it wasn't like it was
No,
a pipe up there pouring water in
sure.
and flooding. It was dripping the day we went through there.
and it wasn't like a big puddle either, I mean, but why spend the money to put on a new roof that may need to be taken off depending on what you're going to do. If I were to give you some advice, when we were through there, it wasn't one spot, it was just little spots around. My issue would be to put one of those big trash cans underneath of it, maybe, and have it dumped periodically, and or tarp or try to patch the roof at a minimum cost. If water gets on the floor, it's concrete. All the floor coverings have got to go. They're asbestos. The ceiling tiles are all asbestos. And so you're not going to salvage any of that. And I wouldn't suggest anybody go in there and try to,
That was my next question.
no, to go in and clean, because we were in there, what, an hour, not quite an hour, and yeah. You used to think I sound bad. That's the way I sounded when I walked out. When we came out, it's like, no, because it's closed up. So it's just kind of,
Yeah.
and it's airborne. And that's where the issue is. And you don't want a liability to any body cleaning or any staff in that situation. It's almost as bad as pigeon poop.
Okay.
So, because our environmental guy said, look, we're gonna be in here on a short time frame. And we went through every floor, I do not go on the roof, but our environmentalist and Kevin went up on the roof and took a, you know, but, I don't think there'll be any harm to the building if you just left it, just until November.
Okay.
Not like another building we went in recently where there was a pipeline and there was still water in the pipeline separated and flooded the inside of the building.
It was
You
bad.
don't have that condition in this building.
No. And it's, the cost of the renovation, don't let it scare you, that's the easy money to get. Because you have multiple sources that will pay for revitalization, whether it's industrial revitalization funds, whether you get the other half paid for with another round of DDOT money. There's the big brother in the room, the Tobacco Commission has money, you know, so there's all sorts of monies that are available. The park, the streetscapes, the actuaries, they're very expensive, actuaries are, but to bring you a nice sidewalk with at the traffic light with an actuator and bring you down by the train area and either stay close to the street or meander through the park, either way, there's, park money, they could do that, there's park money that could help to buy that property if you so to go that route. But it's all predicated on that first one.
Okay.
In,
Speaking of that first one, what realistically are our odds? Do we have a relatively strong application?
well, we put a lot of information in there about Fast Seed, no doubt, I didn't lie.
Okay.
I'm firmly convinced that you're gonna be surprised at the impact that you get. And, but there's a need
Mhm.
for certain things in your community. As an economic developer, there's certain things you can drive around and see, you know, and if you have much push out, not everybody's gonna wanna live in Chesterfield. Think about this, you have people that are coming in this area from expensive areas. They may wanna live in Chesterfield. But some of these people, like come into Prince Edward County, Buckingham, and Charlotte and Cumberland, they have an opportunity to buy a farmette, 25 acres or so, that they couldn't afford to get in Northern Virginia, or I use Northern Virginia because there are a lot of government contractors up there. They have to live in Northern Virginia, but if they could get out and buy a farmette, you know, 25 acres, 50 acres, you got it. Beautiful land all around you. You're close enough to Chesterfield, but not too close. And I think you're gonna be surprised. You're close to hospital, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You know, some of your rural competitors, other counties, are not near hospitals. So, you know, you have a lot more going for you than you think you do. You look around and you think, oh, wow.
I will be pleasantly surprised. I have worked in DC. I mean, I'm talking from somebody who just lived up in that neck of the woods.
I'm from there.
Okay. I don't know how anybody would want to go back.
Well, I moved, and I got as far as Prince Edward, and I told myself I wouldn't go any closer than Richmond ever again.
Sure.
And my son's getting ready to retire from Fort Belvoir. And his thing is, I want to live in Bloomberg, or Charlotte County, or I want to take my federal government retirement, and I want to buy a farmette.
Sure.
If I don't want to,
Well, I've got one in Ottawa you might be interested in.
And I was under the impression that we would know something around mid-March for the TAP grant. Was that incorrect? Is it November that they let us know?
trying to think. It wouldn't be awarded till,
Right.
you couldn't get the money till March. I think the announcement will come out in November, but you have a whole lot of hoopla to get the.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was thinking March of this year, we would find out something, and then, no, okay. Okay, I see.
Yeah. Now, if we find out earlier, then we just, with the scale of it, was my issue, it would be, but I've had anesthesia since then, so. I had hip replacement surgery a couple weeks ago. But either way, the best course of action right now, in my professional opinion, is to wait and let's see what we get on the VDOT.
Okay. All right. Any questions from members of council for Ms. Carney or Mr. Dickerson? All right. Thank you for coming, and sorry to interrupt your wife's birthday anniversary.
It comes with the territory.
It's a month long.
Right? There you go. Thank you both.
Thank
And
you.
Yes, ma'am.
if you have a facility, building facility or whatever,
Yes, ma'am.
let me know, and I'll be glad to see what this lady's really looking for. what her
Yeah,
plan is.
if she's got, if we could get some idea of how much space she needs, we have some vacant buildings in town. If she just needs something temporarily, we have extensive on the community center that could be used, perhaps, rent it.
You know, there's IRF money for your downtown. Well, we're not talking about that, but there's IRF, industrial revitalization funds, available.
Shoot me a link,
Okay,
I'll pass it around.
okay.
Good.
I've been dying to use that. If you wanna see how it was used,
Yes, ma'am.
look at the old Southern States building
Yes, ma'am.
and, the,
Marvel, right.
yes.
Another one.
The gentleman who put the brewery downstairs got IRF money to do that. Walk to Campus did not pay for that portion of it. They own the upper section and rent to him the downstairs. And he got IRF money to help him put that brewery in there. Just saying.
We've been talking about this for 2 years. Good, I didn't know there was a funding option. Well, that's good to know.
But it's just not breweries, it's all sorts of business
Sure.
ventures. So if you have a business venture, that's what they, at the end use, that's really what they're looking for, is hook it up. But it is a huge success. You're so close to the base. Breweries, I know they're doing one in Blackstone, but what you don't have here is you don't have a distillery,
Right,
just saying.
right. Not a problem. All right, thank you both.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I call the February meeting of the Crewe Town Council to order. Please join me with me in a moment of silent prayer. Please join me with me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we'll take delegations from the public and citizens' comments. By the way.
Always. You know that I had the Wash Bucket Initiative, and we have recent, and I'm just looking for,
Can you hear?
Yep.
Okay, okay.
I'm, as president of the Wash Bucket, I'm looking for some feedback, for some open feedback from the community, or from you guys, maybe not the whole community, because you'll never make everybody happy, but we've just recently applied for about $16,000 in grants, in grant money, which we have reason to believe we probably will get, okay? And so we're, of course, going to want to spend the money, and so if anybody has any ideas about small projects we can do about town, please let me know, let us know so that we can put that before our committee. The other one, and I've already spoken to Wade, that we're attempting to get together some information right now for a large grant of about $100,000, if we can get it. We have reason to believe that we qualify well for it. We're hoping to do repair sidewalks going up and down 460. So just to kind of keep everybody in the loop. about that.
That's separate from the 16.
Yes, yes, sir, it is.
On the 16 that you mentioned, are there certain restrictions on how the money can be used, or is it?
No, actually, we were a little bit taken back when we first applied for it. My daughter-in-law does a lot of grant writing, and she had told me when we applied for it that we would have to let them know how we wanted to spend the money. As it turned out, we did not. It's just a general community, these are general community grants through Walmart, and they're $2,500 a piece, and we could qualify, we could actually apply for up to 25 of them. But we felt like we needed to stay in the Walmarts within the South Central Virginia area, so we reached out to Southdale Farm, Bull Blackstone. We did both the Walmarts coming down Hall Street, because we all frequent those. Anything that we thought would have serviced us out here, we asked, and that totaled 7.
Okay.
At $2,500 a piece, but they asked for really no information. What they want is for the betterment of the community, and one of our large qualifying factors was that we're in a low-income area, and that will help us.
Sure.
So we're really hoping we're gonna get that money. We have no reason to believe we won't. I'm gonna be really disappointed if we don't.
Okay.
But, you know, we're trying to make some plans, and we like to be eternal optimists in this group. Because we need some real money, you know, $200 here, $300 here, doesn't cut it. We need some real money to be able to do something. So, I'm gonna talk to Ann. Ann came up with I think, which was a fantastic idea. And so, but as a group, you know, there's only 4 of us, and we can't think of everything, so.
If someone in the community that reads about this in the paper or hears about it on the radio wants to get in touch with you, do you have a number that you prefer them to use?
My home number, 645-7711. But, I mean, in reality, they can call me, they all ring to my house, so what difference does it make, you know? At any rate, we're really excited about the possibility of this happening, so we'll see. Kind of cool, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
We can use the money,
Thank you for your work.
we'll see.
It's all right.
But we're looking for ideas.
Does anybody have any questions for Mrs. Christensen? Ms. Yates?
Christian will live, whatever you think.
Maybe not whatever.
Well, maybe not tonight, but.
All right. With that in mind, anybody else have anything to say? Wendy, you don't want to make an announcement?
No, I'm just visiting,
Okay.
seeing what this is all about.
You know what's going on. All right, good deal.
I have another thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When we always talk about blight, and I don't know if this is possible, but I kind of feel as a citizen that there's a heavy weight upon Wade Walker's shoulders when it comes to enforcing the regulations and the rules around here, because it's a small community and everybody knows everybody, and that's a tough place to be. I don't know, he told me one day that no one would like me if I was mayor. I said, you know, they probably would hate me
Well,
for a
that shouldn't keep
while.
you from wanting to run now. I mean, you should, you know.
But I'm just trying to think of a way, or I'm just putting this on the table, that there could be possibly some type of a committee put together of 3 or 4 people that could help with the enforcement as a committee, so that by the time it hits Wade's desk, it's not put on Wade completely. Does that make sense to you? And that way then it takes this heavy burden of being in a small town. He lives right here in town, you know what I mean? And I think there's a whole lot of people in this community that are tired of feeling like certain people get certain privileges, you know? And that's not, you know, we need to.
Well, I would submit that we enforce all the ordinances that we can enforce fairly and equitably across the board. One of the challenges that we have is that the age on some of these ordinances is such that they do have holes in them, and we know that, and they're basically, even if you try to enforce them, they get thrown out of court. We've been told that, dogs in particular.
So can we not rewrite some of them, or tackle one at a time? And
There's been attempts. It takes one at a time, but what we want to make sure that we do is no harm, first of all, We want good ordinances that are solid, but at the same time, we don't want to create, something that's gonna give one neighbor a weapon over another neighbor to, you know, constantly cause problems. There are occasional squabbles. Go ahead. Billy, do you have something? I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
Well, I'm just laying that out there.
Yes, ma'am.
because
If
I-
there is an ordinance in particular that you're concerned about, I mean, that just, if you will identify it.
Well, all you have to do is look around town, and you can maybe, you know, the visual in town says it all, doesn't it? What one needs to be said. Town needs to be cleaned up. And that is certainly a mission of mine, as everybody here knows. And I'm trying to, you know, we as a group, I think, are trying to tackle it from a very positive standpoint. And that we're simply trying to raise money and take on projects
Sure.
and offer service, because most people are not opposed to receiving a service for free. So I think that's a really positive way to go about doing it. And I think that's good, but I think that sometimes we simply just need enforcement. Enforcement helps.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's
All right.
just my thought.
Anybody else have anything? Any other delegations from the public? All right, with that in mind, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Matters on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be approved by one motion. Any item can be removed from the calendar at the request of a member of council and may be voted on separately. You have the minutes of the town council meeting, and I've got, 8th January 2018. You should have the bill sheet, and then there are additions. And I went through these today. Do we have a motion?
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Sisk, second by Ms. Stinson. All in favor? Aye. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no like sign. Motion carried. All right, next we have the town manager's report.
Okay. Just some incidentals I want to let everybody know about. The leaf pickup will stop this week. This Friday will be the last day of leaf pickup. So if you have leaves, they will be picked up after that if they're boxed and bagged and put back in the garbage cans. So we've got to switch over to debris and move on with that. So I wanted to spend the majority of my time tonight talking about something that we've been discussing. Councilman Miskovic asked me to get a group, a list of water lines in town that needed to be replaced, prioritize them and set them up so that we can do that. We've spent a lot of time talking about this. I have and Director of Public Works, Tony Shelton, and honestly, it's a lot easier to give you a list of the lines that have been replaced than to tell you lines that should be replaced, because you can pick one. The lines are basically all the same. If you go back, say 20 years, the lines that have been replaced, I can give you a list of those. If you're going to start with the rest of them, like I said, pick one, and you can start with the main line that comes from Nottaway. That line is over 100 years old. It's, and I'm gonna elaborate further on my opinion here. And honestly, I'm gonna get into my opinion somewhat, having sat up here and dealt with water situations for 17 years. I can tell you right now that there've been some changes over the years. Some people would argue with me, but I can tell you right now, from where we sit, and Tiffany can vouch for it, we don't get near the water complaints that we used to get from a quality point of view. I'm convinced, and you gotta go back in history, that we did have water quality issues. We were led to believe by water operators that the problem's not coming from the water plant. It's gotta be your lines. And that got out in the public. Now, I'm not saying every line is perfect, so don't misunderstand me here. and as I said, I won't get into this. Over the past, I'll say 10 years, there's been a huge improvement in water quality, to a point where I'm comfortable saying that we don't have a problem with the water lines. Okay, hear me out. The lines are old, the mains are in pretty good shape. When we have a line break on a main, typically it's at a junction, which would be a valve, two lines put together, a valve, something of that nature. The lines themselves rarely break, they're in good shape. Even the main line that I spoke of is in excellent condition. To be so old, to be a 12-inch main, that because of chemical treatment over the years, some of you I've talked to you about this Aquaman. It's a chemical that seals around the inside of the pipe. It doesn't get necessarily into town, but it seals that pipe. Times that we've had to replace sections on the main 12-inch line, the line was in good shape. When that line breaks, and y'all know it doesn't happen very often, it's usually caused by a factor such as a water hammer. If the pumps are pumping water, and I'll try to explain it best I can, and power goes out, or they shut down, or something along that line happens where everything stops, then the pumps kick back on and creates a hammer. And if you think about it, it makes sense. The water would start to go back because it's not being pumped, and then here comes the pump. That's when we have problems with that line. Okay. Water problems in the town as far as the water lines go. I don't think the mains are that big of a problem, but it is a problem. We have a section of line from the main to the water meter that belongs to the town. That's ours. If you're looking in your yard, from the main, wherever that is, to your water meter belongs to the town. 1,000 houses in town have old galvanized service lines. We typically get complaints now about pressure. I don't have any pressure. Something's going on with my pressure. We go out, sometimes we blow that meter and find out it's not us. If it's not us, and we've got plenty of pressure at the meter, it's the customer's line, who has the same old galvanized line. What we do, when we talk about it, I think we've had 30 water breaks in the last year. Well, we call a water break anytime we have a leak, it's a water break. The majority of those have been service lines. They've been main to the meter. And y'all may have seen them working on, we've had 3 or 4 on the highway. That's what they were. So when we have those, we go in, we completely replace that galvanized line. We put in all new copper, all new fixtures, everything. That's just about the best we can do. And I know it's better to have plans, and I'm not saying that we don't replace lines. I've got 3 lines that we listed that we do need to probably, because of breaks, constant breaks on those lines. But I just want everybody to kind of understand that it's not always best to be reactionary, but in this case I think it is. The town does not have the resources to go and replace every single service line in town. It still would not eliminate all the private lines. It's just a deal with it as we deal with it. So I wanted to just explain all that and what we've come up with. So,
In other words, fix them as they break.
yes.
Okay.
Now, you can pick 2 or 3 a year to replace, but honestly, when you sit down and really talk about it, and we've talked about it many times, like I said, pick one. Pick one. They're all basically the same condition, they're all almost the same age, just the way it is.
Wade, you bring up a good point about going from meter to house and via those private lines, because a lot of the sewer issues are with the same thing, from house to meter.
Yes.
What does it cost an individual to replace one of those?
Well, this, you gotta think two separate situations here, one of them is ours. And that can be anywhere from 3 feet to 10 feet. You know, main could be across the road, it comes to the meters over here. Then you got, you know, the customer's line. And, we've seen it. We've gone into some customers, we had one in particular not too long ago, that we couldn't seem to figure out what was going on, and had no pressure. They had literally no water. And when we got down there and tried to help them, we found rust and debris had broken off and it clogged up their side of the line. We were fortunate enough that it was right at the meter and we could get it out, and we haven't heard any problems since. So, and, you know, and I'm not saying that there aren't lines out there that need to be replaced, but to try to prioritize these lines, and we've got all different size lines, we've 6, 4s, 8s. We don't have an issue with our main lines.
Did any of the events last Friday identify any lines that may need to be replaced?
No. 0. There was no problem whatsoever with water for that incident. It was an unfortunate situation that we looked into, and I verified by talking to the fire chief, because we had heard the same thing, that there might be a problem. He said, no, there was an issue with water. It's just an unfortunate thing, you know, that happened. And you got to understand how they work. They had a couple of hoses hooked up to that hydrant. They're all pulling, which pulls off that line, and they didn't have pressure. Then they had to go. Their tankers had to go out elsewhere and keep them filled, which further draws on the system. You know. The town has procedures in place, just so you know, and we did this on Friday. This was Friday afternoon when this occurred. First thing we did was call the water plant and let them know there was a major fire going on that they needed to be aware of. If it happened in the middle of the night, they're going to get a phone call and they know that they've got to come in. And they basically got plant set up so they come in and flip a bunch of switches and start operating the pump. So, you know, are there some hydrants in town that probably need to be repaired? Yeah, there are. Fire chief is aware of, he knows where they are. He and I talked about this. I can assure you that if they felt like there was any area in this town that was in jeopardy because of that, he would have let us know and we would have fixed it. He is going to get with us and go back through them again, and they test them every year to get ready to do another test. Y'all might have noticed it back before we painted them. I think it kind of messed them up, to be honest with you, but they had painted on certain hydrants based on pressure.
Something else I was gonna bring up, I think maybe we should go back to that. You could incorporate it into your paint scheme. I mean, that's another.
Right, that's what should have happened, but it
Yeah,
didn't.
and it was in the rules when
They did
they
have,
had it, they just didn't follow.
that's right, that is
The
right.
people think.
So, you know, everybody is on the same page on this thing. But, and I'm not trying to get out of giving.
No, and I
Council
understand,
list.
and I appreciate it, but just going back to my question before, is there anything that the town can do if individual wants to improve their water line from, meter to house? Is there anything that we can do to provide assistance, not pay for it, but?
Other than paying for it, I don't know how you would.
Plumbers would normally do that, right? Okay, so.
And I've seen these galvanized lines, I've seen them, and some of them, you know, over a period of time, rust and everything that's built up in those galvanized lines, you might have a pinhole. I don't know how they even operate like they are. And some of them are ours, you know. I'm not gonna lie and say that they weren't. If we find one like that, we're gonna go ahead and replace it. It just kind of wanted to let y'all know where we were on that. We're constantly thinking about it. It's different with sewer lines. Sewer lines are different. So I won't get into that. Obviously, if you got a broken sewer line, you're gonna know.
Thank you, Wade.
But I just wanted to run it by that.
Any questions for the town manager from members of council?
I've got a few more questions on the hydrants. I didn't know if we should get into it now or.
Go ahead.
You said they flow test them every year?
Mhm.
Can we get, is that information stored somewhere where we can get it and look at it? Because I would hate for an individual to come back and blame the town because the hydrant that was used, wasn't up to minimum standards, whatever they may be. And who sets our minimum standards for the PSI?
That's all fire department stuff.
Did they set it?
Well,
I'm sure it is.
they didn't take care of it, so they may have some criteria that
Because
the government.
I've been trying to I've had a couple people asking me about this stuff, so I've been trying to figure it out. And I can't find any legislation anywhere or any guidelines that says, other than the town, who mandates the minimum pressure that needs to be on each fire hydrant. General rule of thumb is 20 PSI, but I can't find anything that, most everything I turn back to says the town manager sets that.
I've never really dealt with it, to be honest with you, it's always been the fire department.
Can you take?
Well, I'm wondering where they, do they have, that's what I wanna see basically, is do they have a procedure in place? I'm sure they probably do, I just would like to be aware of it, so when somebody is asking me about it, I can say, hey, we flow test them and they meet this XYZ standard,
I'll find it out.
so.
You may want to go to VDFP, Virginia Department of Fire Programs, and they may be able to give you that information.
Should we have, I was gonna say, we'll have the fire chief call in. And too, and then that way you can call, can he call you at work?
Yeah, my cell phone's on my, yeah.
Val and I had a lot of talk today, and, first of all, I wanted to be sure that there wasn't an issue, with what I heard, or what I'd seen on Facebook. It's one of the worst things that was ever.
Oh, yeah, that's where it all stemmed from.
Because people don't know, they don't understand, and they start throwing things out there. I told the mayor today, anybody out there that thinks for 1 second that anybody sitting up here governing this town would let anything happen that could possibly hurt anybody is crazy. And I'll tell them that on Facebook. They're nuts. We wouldn't do that. I wouldn't sit here and go, don't say anything about that fire hydrant out there, I know it's not right, and I know if we have a problem, no, not gonna happen. Y'all wouldn't do it. It's not gonna happen. So give us a break.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect that either.
No.
All right, any other
But we're
questions?
gonna continue, Val and I will get together when they do the pressure testing and all, and I'll be sure that I'll find out.
Did they try to tap into a hydrant that was dry, or is that not true?
No,
No,
Yes,
that hydrant is,
I didn't think that doesn't make any sense either.
no, that hydrant is good. I know why, because it's my.
I didn't hear that now.
I personally take care of that fire hydrant. I've been people around it, and I know that fire hydrant is good, and so is that 2-inch fire hydrant down the street. Because recently, the fire department came down there and did a pressure test and stirred up a bunch of mud, and we got a bunch of complaints. So I know the fire hydrants were good.
Val,
And if you don't, ask Brandon Roberts, because he was the one that was down there in Grayson Carbell when they were testing.
Val mentioned a type of house structure that this was, and I forget what he called it, but it dealt basically with, there was no separation from lower floor to upper floor, like a firewall, for instance.
This house was over
What you
100
had,
years old.
all those old houses.
what you had basically was a house that was a chimney, and the fire just crawled right up. It was an unfortunate situation.
Any other questions for the town manager from members of council? Very good, we'll move on to town attorney's report then.
Nothing really new to report, just working on everything I've been working on.
Any questions for the town attorney?
Just a quick question, either for the town attorney or the town manager. I saw that that the town of Crewe went to the county and basically there was in the part of the paper a week or two ago where you have building permits and such. We have a permit for demolition of a building. Is that
The
Theater?
Yes.
Okay, so we are moving forward with that. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions for the town attorney, about members of council? If there are no questions from the town attorney, I'll go to the mayor's report. And I will not repeat most of this because it's already been made public information, other than to say that the 20th anniversary of the Heaven Bound Baptist Church was held recently, and we sent them a letter congratulating them and thanking them for being in town of Crewe. There were several things that came up in the General Assembly, and again, most of these you've already seen, and I have them in the report here, but Senate Bill 196 came up, but which, by the way, I sent a letter in support of this. 196 was for the Courts Justice Committee, and it was designed to hold police officers accountable that are not held accountable. Basically, they do lying, cheating, or stealing, and it does not meet the level of a criminal conduct, that you can still strip them of their DCJS licensures and whatnot. And I did that for a couple of reasons. It came up after the last council meeting, or else I'd have brought it up with you. And I just want to point out, and I did have one question on this, but when I talk to them, I usually talk as mayor. I don't talk on behalf of council unless so authorized. So it's strictly me as an independent elected official. I also requested Senator Ruff and Delegate Wright to look at the DCJS training. Is there some way that we can cut this back from 6 months to 3 months? And I was sent a copy of the current curriculum. I have not had a chance to go through it yet, but I want to go through it and see if there's some way that we can maybe cut that in half and then try to do some of it in-house and then get it changed. Because they bankrupt us. They bankrupt small towns when we have to send people out for 6 months of training and we don't get any use out of them here. There was war memorial legislation that came up that was going to gut the current war memorial protection bills. I went up and spoke against that. As you know, we have 3 war memorials in Crewe that are impacted by that are protected by that legislation. The one at the Dixie Youth Ball Field being the primary one. That's not within our control, total control necessarily. The laws that currently exist protects that ball field monument. House Bill 267, as of Friday the 9th, was in the Senate Local Government Committee. That's the one that changes the charter, that does a realignment that we have been through. With the other mayors and the chairman of the board, we issued a 50th anniversary Tet Offensive salute to our Vietnam veterans, recognizing also the 4 men from Norway who died or killed in action. And then I wanted to add that today is Lincoln's birthday, Abraham Lincoln's birthday. And Abraham Lincoln's mama supposedly is from Nottoway County down at Bare Bones Creek. And if we don't make note of that, then you know, it's something I think that we should capitalize on a little more. And I have no ideas at the present time on how we can do that, but I think it's worth mentioning. And that's all I have, unless anybody's got any.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Yes, the Hanks family.
Does the Historical Association realize that?
Yes,
We
and
do
one-
now.
It should be, it's in one of the books that are in the library here.
Okay.
That guy wrote it, what, 1938 or something like that?
Yes.
Study it.
Yes, that's right, William Reed Turner's book.
He wrote it.
All right, with that in mind, we'll go to committee reports unless there's any questions from me. All right, committee reports, infrastructure,
Talked to Tony Friday and everything seems to be going good.
outstanding. Finance,
Other than all the water breaks, but they getting through it.
one at a time. Finance committee,
No report.
personnel committee,
No report.
volunteer services committee,
No report.
economic development committee.
I've got a report, and I'd say briefly, but I don't want to lie to everyone. So as briefly as possible.
Most of us have no report.
Right, thank you. Just a quick update on the Virginia Grocery Investment Fund legislation that we supported. Both pieces of legislation were sent to, or the House version was sent to House Appropriations, but it wasn't moved forward out of there. They essentially laid it on the table, so it died. I believe the Senate version is now in House Appropriations, whether they looked at it or not. Is there? But the budget funding is still the main linchpin that's still alive. So I believe this weekend they'll be looking at budget things and seeing if that moves forward. I'm going to be attending a offers conference for potential grant funds that we've looked at in the past, the Virginia Foundation for Healthy Youth. Grants, they're having one of their offers conferences in Blacksburg on the 22nd, which is somewhat convenient for me. And if we get that, that would be $30,000 per year for up to 2 years, no match requirement. We'd have to have a plan in place of what we want to do with that.
No
And-
match.
Hmm?
No match.
No match requirement. Now, your application looks better if you have a match, but a match is not required, or has not been in the past. So I'll be sending out some feelers for what we might want to use that funding for. I'm thinking, my thought was, establishing plans for something like a food hub. Something like what they have they just opened in South Hill, or are opening in South Hill, or, it essentially bringing together some of the agricultural community to be able to offer their services and goods, whether that's making things or.
Could we purchase a place with that money? I mean, an actual building?
It's possible.
Okay.
Now, again, these are all just ideas that I'm throwing out there now, but let me go to the conference and get a group together. Now it's the HCAT, it's the Health Coalition Action Teams. So it's a coordinated effort by the HCAT to bring together some sort of a lasting healthy eating, active living change to the community. So any ideas anyone has for things that we should be looking at, we're going to go ahead and start to organize a group to start to look at that, and I may be.
You mean a government group or a?
No, it would be, government would be involved, but the previous one we had was basically our HEAL committee.
Okay.
So it was the chamber, the town,
Okay.
cooperative extension.
Stakeholders.
Right, exactly. In terms of writing the request for the grant, I don't know if I have the capability. If no one in the group has the capability, I may be requesting funding at the next meeting for that purpose. But that's just something I want to throw out there. That's gonna be my focus for the next month. I'd like to also point out that speaking of Fast C earlier, there is a Fast C event in West Virginia on Thursday, I believe. It's been in the Blackstone paper and such. I unfortunately can't go, but it's basically a Q&A for current staff up there who are thinking about moving down here, things that they need to know about the community. So if anyone's interested in going, Billy Colburn says he has room in his car.
Where in West Virginia?
I'm not sure.
This Thursday?
It's about 4 hours away.
Thursday.
Yes, sir.
On the land,
It's 4 hours.
So if anyone's interested in going and giving the perspective of this side of the county, and putting on a good show, a good,
I gotta teach Thursday, you're not interested in going?
Is it
This Thursday?
I believe so.
two meetings?
Okay.
Okay. And that's all I have from economic development, unless my co-chair has anything else.
great job.
You weren't very long-winded today.
All right, good deal. I had a question for you and I forgot.
Oh.
That's all right.
That's why I talked a lot.
That's
So,
all right.
okay, next questions.
We'll come back to
All right, with that in mind, we'll move on to continuing business, and again, I don't have anything listed, but if anybody has anything that they want to bring up.
Just several things, Mayor.
All right,
I believe Vice Mayor Stinson is still looking at getting quotes for library renovations.
Yeah, I still am.
Okay, perfect. One thing that occurred to me the other day, driving back and forth from Blacksburg, was, I don't know if we've ever moved forward with the annexation that we talked about.
we have not moved forward at all. I mean, what we wanted to do was query the county, and it's favorable
Okay,
for one, to bring in that one business. That's what we want to do.
okay.
Anything more than that, it might be.
Okay, so we still need to ask the county? Or,
Yeah, well, you said you still have to go through the process.
okay.
Well, let me ask you this, since we're gonna go that, ain't gonna go with like 100 yards,
Yeah,
why not go all the way down to the creek and that farmland is right there in case they ever develop that in their business or something?
I don't have a problem with that.
That's just a food for thought.
Yeah, but I mean, that's something you guys need to talk about.
You know, if you're gonna go through all that legwork, you might as well, I don't know, just food for thought, whatever.
My question is, if you go that far, then what residences would be affected? Would there be any residences that, I mean,
Yeah,
how are you gonna draw?
You have a few. You might have a junkyard involved in it.
Okay. Any
The
other?
lane up there where the, Love's place is on the market for $500,000.
Well, I mean, that's something we can certainly look into, and if, Councilman, Knight wants to, investigate that potential and.
It's no investigation, all you gotta do is draw the line. That's all you
Well,
gotta
it's,
do.
right.
Oh, we thought they going all the way out to Mountain Hall Road at one time, you ever thought that?
Tessica Road, I mean, you can't just annex something.
Right, it's,
Yeah,
If we do what you're talking about, everything is already there,
right,
services.
You know, you wanna be careful obligating yourself to additional services.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's
That's-
actually served water and sewer.
So, my next piece of new business, last meeting, I mentioned I'd get some quotes for the newsletter, if that's something that we still want to move forward with. I received 4 different, quotes. Option 1, and this is for 2,500 full color, 2-sided, 80-pound weight, 11 by 14 sheets of paper. Option 1 was $2,000. Option 2, $743. Option 3, $525. And option 4, $285.
Same
They're all generally about, some of these were not able to do, say, 11 by 14, some were 9.5 by 14. The option 3, I said $525, that was starting price. I didn't add in the 80-pound weight and things like that. So it's,
Can you send that out to everybody?
absolutely,
Question, Phil.
yes.
3 years ago, or 4 years ago, when it was done, that was 8.5 by 14.
It was it, okay,
It wasn't 11.
okay.
That makes a big difference.
It does it,
I bid on the 8.5 by 14
okay,
based on what was done 3 years ago.
I see. Okay, nope, that's, let me go back then and rework those numbers by 8.5 by 14.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you change it, you have to make sure that you meet the mailing.
Right.
Otherwise.
Absolutely, yeah, that was
accepted.
my error. I, sending out these requests, it was, okay. Let me go ahead and do that, and I'll resend an email, to council members with those. But it sounds like option 4 may be the way to go, but it may be slightly different in price. My final piece of new business, this is the first time that council, continuing business, first time that all members of council have been here, I believe, since we had a public hearing on the chicken ordinance. And now that everyone's here and can voice an opinion and vote on it, I'd like to make the motion that we adopts the ordinance as advertised and for which we had the public hearing.
All right, Mr. Miskovic has made a motion.
Second.
We have a second to adopt the chicken ordinance that was advertised. Now, I have not looked at that ordinance in quite some time, so I would have to, but I'm not voting anyway, but I would have to refresh myself. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to see what it says. It's been a while since I read it.
Okay,
My mind's not too good right now.
okay,
I'm on my head.
all right. Is there any other discussion?
I think, in all fairness, we owe it to the citizens to go ahead and bring it to a vote. So my suggestion is that everybody study it again and we do it next time? Is that-
If that's the consensus, I don't mind withdrawing my motion.
Does consensus? Do you want to vote?
I can vote. We need to wait, I'll vote next week.
Okay.
Well, I'm ready to vote too, but I'm hearing people
Mhm.
say they don't
I'm
want.
ready to vote, I'll go with the majority.
Whatever suits the council, I'm all for it. But I would like to look at the ordinance again.
Well, I'm kind of the opinion you need to look at the ordinance again.
I mean, that's
And
fair.
I would suggest that we delay it a month and bring it up, and put it on the calendar for next month. We'll vote, that way everybody can review the ordinance, and that gets the public engaged again to, you know,
Okay.
reach out to members of council so they can voice their opinions.
Perfect, and if we can all try to be here for the next meeting.
That brings up a question. If we know we can't make it, can we email in about it?
I don't think so.
Why?
Because it's not allowed by law, I don't believe.
Well, I don't think he's gonna make, I don't think he's gonna bring it to the table unless all of us do.
Yeah.
The way I understood it.
Notarized?
We can always call a meeting.
I feel like that.
Paper effort.
In theory, if you know that you're not going to be here, you can participate through telephone or Skype, up to 2 times a year, I believe is the term. So you can participate virtually, so long as the majority of council members are here.
All we gotta do is call them, put them on speakerphone, and
That's correct.
Okay.
you can't notarize.
All right, with that in mind, are you withdrawing your motion? I guess that's the question.
I will withdraw the motion for,
Okay, all right, very good.
thank you.
Thank you. The Virginia Tech records copy.
Yes.
That's still progressing?
That's slowly progressing. They moved offices. I also had them make digital copies of the old division headquarters plans. There were a dozen or so sheets.
Yes.
So they have digital copies of those. I've been meaning to pick them up. In fact, I was going to pick them up today, but ran out of time.
Understand.
It's progressing. It's slowly progressing. Hopefully by this summer.
For background, what we're doing, we're taking a lot of the minutes from the town of Crewe, the old minutes and old records and things, and Virginia Tech's got a program where they're gonna put all this stuff, you know, make it into, you know, PDFs and things that you can view online. All right, is there any other continuing business?
I have provided council members with what the town manager and I came up with as far as updating our progress since the last update on our comprehensive plan. I'd ask you all to read it and just email me if there are other things that we didn't add in, to underline things or what we put. And you have to kind of look, this format is awkward, but what you have to do is take the last plan you were given and then compare it with this one for it to make complete sense. But if you think of anything that we forgot, just shoot me an email and I'll put it in there. And I did figure it out, this plan is good for 2 more years. This one expires in 2020.
Start it all over.
With a different format, if I'm still here.
Good job, man.
Rick, do you want a copy of this comprehensive plan for your records, or, I said, would you like a copy of that for your records?
Can't be good.
Okay.
This is not the entire plan, it's just the goals.
Yeah, the goals and objectives. All right, with that in mind, we move on, is there any other continuing business? With that in mind, we move on to new business?
On new business, right now, the town hall is in desperate need of an HVAC system. We've already received 2 bids, we're waiting on the 3rd bid, and I would like to authorize the town manager to take either the lowest bid or whatever bid is before we go and get this thing fixed, where we ain't got to keep waiting another month.
We can't afford to wait another month.
It's costing a lot of money in electricity, yeah.
All right, so we have a motion, is that a motion?
That's a motion.
We have a motion from Mr. Knight to authorize the town manager to accept the lowest of the 3 HVAC system bids for the town hall. Is there a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion?
Can I ask what cost we're looking at?
Anywhere from 10,000 down.
So under 10,000.
It's gonna be under 10,000 for that.
Thank you.
Well, wouldn't the windows be,
I was just
I
gonna
mean,
say that.
That's the next thing I'll bring up.
seems like that might be,
Yeah, but it's costing us, cause they're running on, most of the time, they're running on strip heat up there.
new units gonna be running all the time too, isn't it?
Not on strip heat it ain't,
Very well.
the electric strips. What is it, how much more was the bill this past month, Tiffany?
About $600 more.
Take that and run.
Cause the heat pump can't keep up.
No, strip heat, it's the heat pump we got to need to make it all.
It's broke and it won't cut off, basically.
Very well.
Any other questions or discussion?
Is it the heat back or is it the people that work for
Somebody mentioned something about buying jackets last week.
Yeah.
I'll stick up, since I'm the personnel chair, I'll stick up for them. I'm very hot-natured and I was freezing. I met with Wade the other day, we went over the
I
contract.
keep my coat on all the time too.
Okay,
If I'm cold, it's
Put
cold.
it this way, if the air conditioner were as cold as the heat is right now, we'd have it made with something.
Turn on the heat and suffer, make up the difference.
No, we've got the money in the budget for that.
Okay, we have money in the budget. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by like sign.
And the next thing I'd like to bring up is, replacing the windows up there.
Okay,
We're gonna get 3 bids on that. We've already got, I solicited at least 2 people. I'm waiting on a third one on that. And we've got the money in the budget probably to do that too. I guess. Yeah, it should be less than, I don't know, I'm not gonna sit there and guess, but from what I've seen in the past, less than $15,000 or less, probably.
all right. So are you asking for authorization for up to $15,000 for window replacement at the town hall?
I'm at authorization, we've got, 25 in the, 25 we got in the budget for, can't remember. Let's see, we'll bring it back to council, when we get 3 bids, let's do that. But you know, the heat system needs to be fixed right now,
Are those windows original to the building?
but it's not historical building. But you will be putting them in pretty much like that, was it 12 light, I think, called 12 light, wrap them in, vinyl. Aluminum.
It's not designated.
No.
Is there another option where we can preserve the original windows without?
Well, we got storm windows on that side,
Well,
but the old, they don't have a glass in there.
you could seal them. I've seen that done.
It's
That
like,
look very good.
like to paint them, in order to do that. It cost us what, $12,000 last time? The paint's chipping off over them now.
Well, that was a cheap job, cheaply done.
I would like to see what get the prices and see what the windows would look like.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay,
I was trying to think where, the Baptist church up there that renewed theirs, you know, they got the real tall 12 light windows, and they're saving us some money.
all right. Is there any additional new business?
Mayor, speaking of blight that one of the citizens brought up and things that we've been dealing with, I was perusing through the blight fighting techniques currently available in Virginia that DHCD provided council a couple months ago, and just wanted to bring to attention council just a handful of things in here that may perk our interests. The first one, a locality may adopt an ordinance to require owners to remove, repair, or secure any building, wall, or structure that might endanger public health or safety. The locality may perform the work and bill the owner if no action results after reasonable notice. The locality may waive the liens to facilitate the transfer of property. Meaning that we would adopt an ordinance that basically requires individuals to keep up their house, and if they don't, then we keep it up for them.
I think we already have that.
Yeah, it's
Do we?
American,
With
it's
the-
American Building Code.
Yeah, with the
Good.
dangerous buildings ordinance, it's 18-76.
Now, is the building code different than these, I believe?
Yes, there's two different things that we have in the books.
Mhm.
Number one is the property maintenance code.
Right.
But then number two is there's a separate dangerous buildings ordinance that we have on the books too. So what we usually do when we write a letter of violation is we actually put it under the dangerous buildings ordinance and we put it also under the, property maintenance code too.
Okay,
But we can do one or the other.
so you're not referring to the dangerous building, or there's two, there's the building maintenance and the
Correct.
building, this is separate, we have the ordinance.
Yes, we
Okay.
have, there's a separate ordinance that we have on the books that
Okay.
is specifically related to that.
Perfect, thank you. The second one, and this is of, should be of special interest to citizens, this is, citizen initiated, issues. This procedure permits 5 or more citizens to petition the local circuit court to impanel a special grand jury to investigate whether an activity constitutes a nuisance. If the grand jury finds that it is, the person creating or permitting the nuisance to continue may be subject to fine of up to $25,000 and can be ordered to remove the nuisance and pay the removal costs. So that's a tool that citizens have to bring about any change that they want
Take
to
a
see.
lot of weight off of Wade's shoulders.
That's what you said, there you go.
I'm serious.
Do it.
Let me go find you some comrades.
And if you're interested, that is section 48.1 to 48.6 of the Code of Virginia.
It's section, it's what?
48.1 to 48.6. We can also tax delinquent properties. A locality may file a petition to have property with an assessed value of less than or equal to $100,000 sold for delinquent real estate taxes following the first anniversary of its delinquency. So in the past, we've looked at the second anniversary. This allows you to do it with the first anniversary. A locality may acquire or repair blighted properties anywhere within the locality. The locality must give the owner of the record both notice and an opportunity to prepare a plan to correct the blight. If the owner fails to respond or prepare an adequate plan, the locality may declare the property is blighted. The locality can then proceed to repair or acquire the blighted property. The locality can place a lien equivalent to tax lien on the property to recover its costs for bringing the property into compliance with building code. The locality can recover its costs from the proceeds of any sale or disposition of the property by the owner. Although a locality can acquire such properties through eminent domain, it cannot acquire occupied residential property using the spot blight process unless it is unfit for human habitation.
Does the clerk have a copy of this document? If you will turn that over to the clerk, she can PDF it and send it out to all the members of council.
Sure.
And-
Those were,
That came from that meeting we
Right.
had.
right, and those were the 4 that most
Sure.
apply to us in our situation.
Sure.
So there are several tools that we can use, and that's what I have.
All right, good. Any other new business? At this time, we come to points of personal privilege. Mr. Miskovic,
Nothing for me. Happy Valentine's Day.
Mr. Abel? Nothing. Just think. Fine. Sit.
Yeah, I got a few things to say. The individuals that did lose their house have some positive things to say about the town, unlike the trolls on Facebook. But Brian and Karen were very appreciative of the way the citizens came and donated money and clothes and all that. They got property outside of town, and they've been looking to sell their house and move. Now, after this has happened, he told me there's no way he wants to leave people like us, so they're gonna rebuild and stay here. So that's the kind of community we have, unlike some of the individuals that patrol on Facebook and don't have enough time to get off of and come to a council meeting and hear the real deal. So, just keep that in mind.
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
And keep Brian and Karen, because they got a 2-year-old daughter and they lost animals, and I mean, they're really good people.
I heard the same thing from when they
Yeah,
said
I mean, they're
that
great
they
people.
considered
Great
moving
name.
out, and because of everybody's kindness, they were staying here.
Is there anything that they need at this time?
Yeah.
I mean, what do they need?
The- I really don't know, because, people I know, VCBR, an individual that works there, they're part of the Diamond White.
Like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're, Tanisha Evans is, they're doing a thing to donate clothes and stuff,
Okay.
that organization. Plus, we were told that Burkeville, where they do all the sales in the old, gym, Burkeville High School
Yes,
gym,
yeah.
they get to come in there and pick out stuff for
Okay.
free for the fire victims. And the insurance company was there today to check out everything, so everything's going smooth. Unfortunately, they lost everything, but they're blessed by the community.
Nobody died, that's the main thing.
No, nobody was.
All right, Mr. Reed.
Approve the chair.
All right, with that in mind, we move back into the public comments. Yes, ma'am.
I've been thinking about what you asked me. You asked if I had any specific concerns, I guess.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I can't say, well, this is a huge problem all over town, but I can think of two good examples
Yes, ma'am.
that I think should be easily addressed.
Yes, ma'am.
One is we have a boat that's been sitting in the street for as many years as I've lived here, and that's
Boat?
it. A boat.
Mhm.
Bill, you know where the boat is? On what
I see
street?
it every day.
Every day.
I
It's
gotta
never
ride
been
around the
moved.
tree that's growing underneath it.
Yeah, that seems to me that would be something that not only would we want to enforce as a town ordinance, but could not even fall back upon our police department to enforce that as a,
What's the address on this thing?
I know where, I bet it's Wilson Town.
okay? And my second example would, and I don't drive all over town looking for broken down cars and boats, but that's an example of something that I think should be easy to solve. A second example, and I think it's on the corner of Maryland? No, I don't know. The next street up from Tennessee. What's the main street? What's Main Street?
Carolina.
Carolina. Okay.
Tennessee?
Carolina between me and 460. Okay. So Carolina and maybe Second Street. There's a house there that's been running a one-year-long garage sale. They have a piano in the front yard. Can't we make them clean up their yard and not run a year-long marathon garage sale? Well, just drive by.
I'm trying to think of where this is.
It's on
The
the,
manager's
she's
already on
talking
it.
about on the corner of Carolina and Russell.
It's horrible. It looks horrible, it's a menace. When we allow those things to happen in our town, it decreases all of our property values.
Yes, ma'am. We'll check into those.
So those are just two examples I can think of, okay? But, and I think those are the easy things to fix. There's lots of hard things to fix, but those kinds of things should be the easily reconcilable
Okay.
problems. But I was just thinking about that. And then Phil can, obviously, I think I can get a copy of what you were just reading from.
Yeah, here.
I would love to have a copy.
Digital version.
All right, any other delegations from the public? Yes, ma'am.
It's Stevie's birthday.
Happy birthday,
Happy
Steve.
birthday to you.
She'll sing it to her.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Stevie. Happy birthday to you.
And many more going on the floor.
All right, with that in mind, we do not need an executive session, so I'll entertain a motion for
So
adjournment.
moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Knight. Second. We have a second by Mr. Sisk. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, I like sign.
Hey, how are you?
How are you?
Yeah. Hey.